This is a story that's all about profound, all-consuming love. You know, the kind a parent has for a child. But here's the thing. It's also a story that ends in unimaginable horror. We're talking about a scene so brutal that the first responders compared it to a grizzly bear attack. So how on earth does one lead to the other? That's really the question at the heart of this incredible story.
So let's meet St. James and Ladonna Davis. Back in the 1960s, they brought home an infant chimpanzee. They named him Mo, and they built their entire world around him. Now, this wasn't just some pet in a cage. No, this was their son. They loved him with this fierce devotion that would end up defining and ultimately shattering their lives. Because this whole story, which started with so much love and affection, ends in a catastrophic, violent attack. And the real mystery here isn't just what happened, but why that love, their love, remained so completely unshakable even after the unthinkable went down.
Okay, so to really get the tragedy, you first have to understand the family. For more than 30 years, the Davises and Moes lived this surreal domestic life, completely blurring every line you can imagine between human and animal. And for them, all of this became totally normal. I mean, Mo wasn't just copying human behavior. He was a full-on participant in their life. He wore clothes, he had chores, he even served as the best man when they renewed their wedding vows. In every single way that mattered to them, he was family. But, you know, this kind of unique paradise, it just couldn't last. The outside world, with all its laws and its understanding of nature, started to close in. And that forced a conflict that had really been brewing for decades. And this really gets to the core tension of the entire story. See, no matter how much love the Davises poured into Mo, he was still a chimpanzee, a powerful, wild animal. And that fundamental truth, well, it was going to have dangerous and ultimately totally unavoidable consequences. So in the late 90s, after Mo bit a couple of people, the authorities had to step in. Now, the Davises fought it in court, passionately, but a judge ruled that Mo was a danger to the public. He was seized from the only home he'd ever known and moved to an animal sanctuary. The Davises, they were absolutely devastated, but they refused to abandon him. They visited constantly, always dreaming of the day they could bring him home. And it's those visits that lead us to the day everything changed forever. A day that started out as a celebration and ended as an absolute nightmare. I mean, picture the scene. It was Mo's 39th birthday, and St. James and Ladonna drove out to Animal Haven Ranch to celebrate with him. They brought all his favorite things, a cake, candy, chocolate milk. And when Mo saw them, he started clapping and smiling just like he always did. It was supposed to be a happy day. But as Ladonna was cutting the cake near Ma's cage, somewhere else on the property, someone made a catastrophic mistake. The door to another enclosure, one that housed two other big male chimps named Buddy and Ollie, had been left unlocked. And just like that, they were out. The chaos was immediate. Before anyone could even react, Buddy lunged at Ladonna and bit her thumb clean off. Without a second's thought, St. James shoved his wife under a picnic table, shielding her and drawing the animal's full attention to himself. The two chimps then unleashed their full, terrifying fury on him in a horrific frenzy. Hearing the screams, the ranch owner's son-in-law came running with a revolver. He shot Buddy, but Ollie started dragging St. James's mangled body away. He had to fire again, killing the second chimp and finally ending the brutal assaults. St. James Davis was barely clinging to life. But what followed all that physical horror is maybe the most shocking part of this whole story. The couple's incredible, unwavering psychological response to what happened. The sheer scale of the damage was just staggering. St. James spent months in a coma and would end up enduring more than 60 reconstructive surgeries. Just think about that. The attack had cost him almost everything. And this right here is the unbelievable contrast at the very heart of their story. On one side, you have this devastating physical toll. His face was destroyed, he lost most of his fingers. But on the other side, his emotional devotion to Mo, it didn't just survive, it remained absolute. They never, not for one single second, blamed him. To them, their reasoning was simple, perfectly clear. Mo had stayed in his cage during the entire attack. The animals that mauled St. James were Buddy and Ollie. In their minds, their son, Mo, was innocent. And even after everything they'd been through, they kept right on fighting for his return. But despite that profound dedication, This story was never, ever going to have a happy ending. There was no joyful reunion, just more loss and more heartbreak for a family that was already completely broken.
In 2008, 3 years after the attack, Mo escaped from a different facility he'd been moved to. He just disappeared into the San Gabriel Mountains and was never seen again. Then, a decade later, in 2018, St. James Davis passed away. His health had just never fully recovered from those catastrophic injuries. And while the physical trauma from the attack was obviously immense, those who were close to him said what truly broke St. James in the end was the loss of Mo. He never got to say goodbye, and he died without ever being reunited with the chimpanzee he considered his son. And so that's what we're left with, this really powerful question. The Davises' devotion was absolute, a powerful and undeniable love. But was it a love that fatally misunderstood that unchangeable line between a human child and a wild animal? And what does that say about the nature of love itself?